Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions will please come to order. This morning we're holding a confirmation hearing on Ken Marcus, nominated to serve as Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the Department of Education. Johnny Collette, nominated to serve as Assistant Secretary for Special Education and Rehabilitative Services at the Department of Education. Scott Mugno, nominated to serve as Assistant Secretary of Labor for Occupational Safety and Health at the Department of Labor. Dr. William Beach, nominated to serve as Commissioner of Labor Statistics at the Department of Labor. Senator Murray and I will each have an opening statement, and then we will introduce the nominees. After their testimony, senators will each have an opportunity to ask the nominees 5 minutes of questions. We have a competing hearing today with this Appropriations Committee on these same issues. We're both members of that subcommittee, and Senator Murray is the ranking member, so for some of this time we'll be going back and forth. In a hearing in 2014, I had this exchange with the former Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the Department of Education, Catherine Lehman. Alexander, Ms. Lehman, you talk about something called guidance, and I've got here about 66 pages of guidance under Title IX. Do you expect institutions to comply with your Title IX guidance documents? Ms. Lehman, we do. Alexander, you do? What authority do you have to do that? Why do you not go through the same process of public comment that the Department of Education is going through under the Clery Act? Ms. Lehman, well, we would if they were regulatory changes. Alexander, why are they not regulatory changes? You require 6,000 institutions to comply with this, correct? Ms. Lehman, we do. The problem with that exchange is that guidance documents are not law. Laws are created by this Congress, or in some cases, the Department of Education may issue regulations within the authority that Congress has granted, and an agency must follow proper procedures that include public comment when it issues regulations. Public comment is especially important when issues are complex and have a great deal of difference of opinions. This certainly is true on the issue of the standard of proof colleges must use when investigating allegations of sexual misconduct. In April 2011, the Education Department had issued guidance under Title IX that told colleges for the first time the standard of proof that must be used when investigating these allegations. I was glad to see Secretary DeVos end this overreach and recognize the difference between the law and guidance, and announced that the department will conduct the proper public rulemaking process to hear from students, college administrators, and others to help schools protect the safety and rights of all students. The Office for Civil Rights has the important responsibility of ensuring that Title IX and other civil rights laws and the protections they provide to all students are fully enforced. If confirmed, Mr. Marcus, I hope you will also recognize the difference between the law, which is binding, and guidance, which is not. Mr. Marcus, you have a deep understanding of civil rights issues, having founded the Louis D. Brandeis Center for Human Rights under law, and having served as staff director of the United States Commission on Civil Rights for 4 years. You also led the Office for Civil Rights at the Department of Education under President George W. Bush for a period of time when it did not have a confirmed official in that office. I have letters from 13 individuals and organizations who support your nomination to lead the Office for Civil Rights, including Hillel Organization, the largest Jewish campus organization in the world. That organization said to us, quote, Mr. Marcus has been a longtime champion for civil rights and for college students. We have worked personally with him on several campuses across the country in response to specific issues of bigotry and discrimination, and we have found him to be extremely skilled and knowledgeable in civil rights laws. Mr. Marcus has been a true leader in fighting discrimination, unquote. I ask unanimous consent to insert the letters into the record, which they will be. You were nominated on October 30, on November 8. The committee received your Office of Government Ethics paperwork, including your public financial disclosure and ethics agreement. On November 28, we received your committee paperwork. Now, Mr. Collette's 5 organizations support your nomination as a result of your long history in special education. I ask consent to insert those statements and letters into the record, which they will be. Mr. Collette, you have been a high school special education teacher. You've served as director of the Division of Learning Services at the Kentucky Department of Education. Your current role is Director of Special Education Outcomes at the Council of Chief State School Officers. You also previously served on the Board of Directors of the National Association of State Directors of Special Education. The association applauded you for having, quote, worked with stakeholders in the disability community at the local, state, and national levels, unquote. You were nominated on November 16. On November 28, the committee received your paperwork. On November 29, we received your Office of Government Ethics paperwork, including your public financial disclosure and ethics agreement. Today, we're also considering 2 nominees for the Department of Labor. The first is Scott Mugno to serve as Assistant Secretary of Labor for Occupational Safety and Health at the Department of Labor. The position is especially interesting to me because in the early 1970s, my father received a call from Tennessee Governor Winfield Dunn, who asked him to be a commissioner on the first Tennessee Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission. At the time, my dad was the safety director at the smelting plant at Alcoa, Tennessee. So I grew up seeing my father's pride when the plant went a long number of days without an accident, which instilled in me the importance of workplace safety. You can imagine, therefore, I have a lot of respect for your experience at FedEx, where you currently serve as the Vice President for Safety, Sustainability, and Vehicle Maintenance for FedEx Ground in Pittsburgh. You've held legal positions at FedEx Express, Westinghouse, and U.S. Army JAG Corps. Of special note, you've had the good judgment to live in Memphis for 18 years, where you and your wife raised your 2 daughters. You were nominated on November 1. On November 13, the committee received your paperwork. On November 14, your government ethics paperwork, including your public financial disclosure and ethics agreement. Mr. Mugno, I have 2 letters and statements from 5 organizations in support of your nomination that I would like to have included in the record, and I ask consent that they be concluded. And finally, as Commissioner of Labor Statistics, Dr. Beach, you will oversee the bureau that's responsible for collecting and publishing the data that tells us how our economy is doing, including the unemployment rate and changes in consumer prices. As fewer people have landlines and more use cell phones and social media to communicate, it's getting harder to reach people in order to obtain these figures. There's also the challenge of how do you engage with the public on these important figures without seeming like we're cherry-picking the best results. Data itself is nonpartisan, and at the Bureau, you'll be leading an agency that collects data and does not make policy. I hope you will have an opportunity at this hearing to tell us how you plan to adapt to these challenges when you release the data gathered through the household and community surveys. Dr. Beach, you're well equipped to lead this organization and meet these challenges. You've been chief economist for the Senate Budget Committee from 2013 to 2016. You were director at the Center for Data Analysis at the Heritage Foundation prior to that. Currently, you're vice president for policy research at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. You were nominated on October 24. On October 28, we received your ethics paperwork. On November 21, we received your committee paperwork. Mr. Beach, I have 3 letters of support for your nomination that I asked to be included in the record, and they will be. Thanks to all of you for your willingness to serve. I look forward to hearing from you, Senator Murray.
Well, thank you.